أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله من أول الدنيا إلى فنائها ومن الآخرة إلى بقائها الحمد لله على كل نعمة وأستغفر الله من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه وهو أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجبين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. We ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala to make this majlis a majlis of Noor, a majlis of Ma'rifah, which remains an asset for us in our graves, in our barzakh, and on the Day of Judgment. The topic we have is regarding IMAMAT, which is a wise and a divine belief system, and that is for the well-being of humanity, for this world and the next. Our talk is on IMAMAT, and for us to learn and understand, and for those who know to strengthen this faith, this Iman be strengthened by what is going to be mentioned. And if someone is not strong in his faith and his belief, it is understood that he will not be able to defend. So, for that reason also, one has to learn, has to make his usul, his basis strong. That is the Tawheed, Adl, Nabuwwat, Imamat, and the belief in the Day of Judgment. So we need to learn, we need to strengthen our bond with the Imam in particular. And it is very unwise that we spend this short life that has been given to us with all unnecessary and vague belief systems, or talk and invest our time in their research. And one has to understand and believe that not being prejudiced at all. For example, Shaheed Mutahari Ridwanullahi alayhi, to one of the communist lecturers, he said, "If you condemn me, I will renounce Islam and God. But if you have been convinced and condemned, then you have to accept the existence of God and Islam." So it is not the question of prejudice. Everyone is learning, everyone has to strengthen his belief system, correct his belief system, and any doubts and any questions one may have, they should be asked, they should be cleared, they should be removed. And no one will ever arrive at a stage of perfection and kamal unless and yaqeen, certainty, unless he has passed through a phase of doubts. So having those doubts, it's perfectly normal, and everyone will have these doubts, and these doubts need to be addressed properly and clear. And this topic that we have on Imamat, it is a very vast topic, a very important and an interesting topic, and there might be questions that may come to one's mind, that why are the names of the Imams not mentioned in the Holy Quran, and why is it that Quran doesn't say that Imamat is in the Usul ad-Din, so on and so forth. So these questions may come to one's mind. So we can answer, in fact, these questions have been answered not now, but 1,000 years ago. Sayyid Murtada Rizwanullahi alayhi, one of the great ulama who has compiled the Nahj al-Balagha, he has a book called Tanzihul Anbiya wal A'imma, that is purification of the prophets and the Imams. In his book he has all these questions and doubts which one may have in his mind have been answered not now, 1,000 years ago. Now, what has the Quran to say about the Prophet? For example, there is an ayah in Quran says that Wa'asa Adam Rabbahu, that Prophet Adam, he disobeyed his Lord and went amiss. Now these ayat, how do we explain them? For that also we have answers. So all of these questions, they have been explained and understood. Now in Nahjul Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he talks about the job description of an imam, he mentions six things that an imam has to possess. Now this is from khutbah number 105 of Nahjul Balagha, that Imam mentions 6 roles or job description for the Imam, and this has been mentioned 1,000 years ago. Says, عَلَى الْإِمَامِ إِلَّا مَا حُمِّلَ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ, that the duty that the Almighty Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has obligated the Imam is for guidance, and that duty has been entrusted to the Imam by the Almighty God. Now this we do have in Quran. In Surah Al-Anbiya, in ayah number 73, says that وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, that is, we made them the Imams. يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, and they guide by our command. So Allah has clearly mentioned in Quran that Imams are made and appointed and deputed and seconded by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now the other job description is that al-iblagh fil maw'idha, that the Imam, he has to advise, and he gives all these advices to the mankind, to the people. Wal ijtihad fin nasiha, he endeavors in their good conduct, in their well-being, in dealing with one another in the community. So Imam regulates them, teaches them, educates them. وَالْإِحْيَاء لِلسُّنَّةِ, the sunnah, the way of life of the Prophet, is upon the Imam, designated to the Imam, that he propagates and informs that way of life of Rasulullah to the people. And who can revive and educate that sunnah better than the Imam? Is there anyone else? Others came, for example, the Imams of the other school of thoughts, they came a century after Rasulullah. And once they come after Rasulullah, a century after him, they are the students of either Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam directly or indirectly, the students of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. So someone who has come into existence a century after the Prophet, and how can he be the Imam? Okay, that's one question that we have in our mind. Now when we look into the statements of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, who is the great grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, when he talks about issues, about ahkam, about jurisprudence, with all courage, with confidence, he takes the ownership on his neck. And when inquired about, now, he is the son of the Prophet, nearer and closer to the Prophet than anyone else, aware of the Prophet more than anyone else, and he is ma'soom, infallible. He is the hujjah, the argument of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and he performed a wudu, Imam as-Sadiq performed a wudu in the presence of these people who had these doubts, and then he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam performed his wudu like that. So with all that courage, takes the ownership of the action, says that this is how Rasulullah performed wudu. This is how Rasulullah offered prayers. So the other job description that Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions for the Imam in Nahjul Balagha is وَإِقَامَةُ الْحُدُودِ عَلَى مُسْتَحِقِّهَا, that is, with the Prophet's, after the Prophet's demise, all these judiciary rules that we have, if someone has committed a wrong, needs to be punished, or if someone owes something to someone, so these ahkam, they need to be implemented, people need to be helped. Or if, for example, someone has passed away, or someone's husband is lost, what will happen to the wife? If she needs to divorce, then who has to deal with all these issues? Or the funds and the wealth of someone who is insane, or a child, or who has been orphaned at a very young age, What will happen to the inheritance of that? So all these are issues which need to be, which need a helping hand. So that is if the Prophet has passed away, and if he was the caretaker of all of these ahkam and all this judiciary system, so after Rasulullah, does it mean that all of that will be suspended, no one else to take care of it? So it is the Imam who is the charge d'affaires of all of these acts and actions. And then says, وَإِصْدَارُ السُّهْمَانِ عَلَى أَهْلِهَا, that is management of affairs, delivering the rights of the nation to the nation. If there is stipends to be given, wages to be given, benefits to be given from the public funds and wealth, that is the task of the Imam. He has to do it. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions in Nahj al-Balagha as the job description of the Imam. So Imam, or the Imamat, is the access of unity in our deen. Imamat is protection of the community. And we do not want to get into the past as to what happened with Ghadir and what happened with how Amir al-Mu'mineen was deprived and his haqq and his right was seized away, his right was usurped. And we don't want to get into those talks. Why was Saqifa established and why was Ghadir forgotten, etc. It's simple equations, simple talk, and Imamat is the talk of the day. It is now our children who are getting mature, will be baligh soon or have already become baligh, and they need to know the acts of worship, how taharat has to be observed, how salat is to be observed, how wudu has to be done, how prayers should be offered, whether or not khums applies to him. And if khums is applied, then what does he do with that khums money? So all these questions are there, all real living, real questions. And Imam says, through us make your children know God. Through us make them worship God. Bina ubidallah wa bina urifallah. That is Imam. Why are Imam? Now, this is also a reality, a fact that we would not know the oneness of God and all these proofs and evidences that we have, and also in Quran mentioned. If the Imams had not explained, none of us would ever know anything. How to communicate to God, that would have been impossible. They teach us how to approach Him, how to call upon Him, how to pray to Him, how du'as have to be recited, what du'as have to be recited, what do you say when you want to supplicate to the Almighty Allah. So that is the job of the Imam. He teaches you. And bina ubidallah, bina urifallah. So Imam is the hujjah. He is the argument of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on earth, and after Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he is the representation, the role model. And should they go after one who is ma'asum, or should they go after someone who is not a ma'asum? This is a question. So what do our children do? Do they go after someone who is ma'asum, or do they not? Our deen, it is based on aql, on intellect. And an important point to note is that we believe that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has two prophets. One prophet that is from within us, which is the aql that he has made, and one prophet in the exterior, and that is the prophets that he has sent. The first being Prophet Adam, and the last being Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So a prophet within is the aql, the intellect that I have, and the prophet in the exterior is the prophet that he has sent. In Usul Kafi, which is the oldest book, in the first chapters of this glorious book, before the discussions and the topics on Tawheed and the existence of God and the oneness of God, Marhum Kulaini has a chapter on Aql, on the intellect. So in our deen, intellect comes first, Aql comes first. Once that Aql is there, then the belief in the God will be there, in His oneness will be there, in His justice will be there, and a person will accept Nubuwwat, Imamat and Qiyamat also. In Quran also, you've recited so many times. There are these phrases, these terms, these words that say, Ya'qilun, ta'qilun, afala ya'qilun. Do they not ponder? Do they not comprehend? Do they not think? Do they not reflect? So, ya'qilun or ta'qilun, it comes from the word aql. Aql means intellect, the thought process that a person has. So it's derived from aql, and both the schools of thought, they have reported these ahadith that the highest and the best of worships that we have is tafakkur. Now, for example, in the month of Ramadan, or even on the night of Ashura, now when you look into these books of du'as, the best of actions on the night of Qadr, for example, there are so many prayers, so many du'as, so many tasbihat to be recited, and the major chunk of these Mafatihul Janan or other books of du'as, you see, it's for the observances of the month of Ramadan. There's so much. Now, even our Ustad Marhum Ayatullah Mishkini Rahmatullahi alayhi, he also emphasized on this. Likewise, Ayatullah Madahiri, who was the Ustad in Akhlaq, he also emphasized on this. Says, on the Laylatul Qadr, all these observances, du'as and recitals on one side, they used to say that if you could sit and if you could ponder, if you could reflect in this creation, in the oneness of God, into yourself, that reflection and that tafakkur, that tadabbur is far heavier in weight than all these observances that are there, which are mustahab. So ta'qilun is important, that in this downpour of information, for example, nowadays on social media, there's so much of information that is pumped, that is sent, that has been, and people also, they get all that information and they think, especially when it comes to deen, they say if you don't send it to 10 people or 20 people or 100 people, this misfortune, the mishap will happen. You have to send it to, etc., etc. So all that is irrelevant, that has nothing to do with deen, and if you don't do it, it isn't as such that you will be hit and hurt. No. The best thing to do is that qurbatan ilallah, you just delete those messages. You don't need to forward them. You don't need to send it to anyone, and nothing will happen by you not sending, or will happen by you sending. No. So in this downpour of information on the social media, haqq and batil, they are contaminated. Imam was inquired, what is the distance and between haqq and batil? Imam says 4 fingers, and places his 4 fingers on his cheek. Says the distance between haqq, right, and batil, evil, are these 4 fingers. So what you hear and what you say, that is the distance. So we have to be extra cautious of nowadays. It's not hearing, it's seeing all these messages that we get on our devices, and loads of messages. So many of them are just rubbish, and most of them are rubbish, and it's casting doubts in the minds of people. So what do? So many times people just see and have faith in them quickly. Now this seeing of messages in this day and age is like hearing that we had in the past. So it's like seeing. What do? Imam Askari alayhi salatu wasalam has an hadith. He says, Man asgha ila natiqin faqad abada. Someone who hears a speaker is as if he has worshipped him. Then he continues with the hadith and says that if the speaker spoke about God, he has worshipped God. And if, God forbid, if it talked about nonsense and indecency and satanic talk, etc., he has worshipped Iblis. So you've heard someone. You have to see who you've heard. Is it haqq or batil? If it was haqq, worship of Allah. If it was batil, it's worship of Iblis. So casting down in doubts in deen, casting doubts in azadari, in the morning of Abu Abdullah. Now the questions that we have in these days, especially starting before the month of Muharram, is it not better not to spend money in tabarruk? Is it not better not to spend money for the majlis? Instead, we help someone else who is in need, an orphan or someone who is in need, who has been afflicted. This country, that country, this place, that place. So these doubts being casted, especially in this season, means that there are think tanks that are working against our deen, and this way people who are simple, they just carried away. No. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has made so many khair. Khair meaning good. Like when you go to buy flowers, you've got an option of flowers, all different colors, different sizes, different fragrances. You pick whichever you want. Actions also that we have, it's similar to that. All of these mustahabbat, all of the actions that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has placed, like salat, like zakat, like salawat, like tasbihat, helping someone, making a mosque, participating in a majlis, tabarruk, accommodating, etc. All these are good actions. So you can't say instead of this I do that. No, all of that is good. Everything is good. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. In fact, you have to compete in doing good. Whichever you pick with ikhlas, with sincerity, is what Allah, He buys from you. So comparing and saying that instead of this I will do that, that is not nice. It's all casting doubts in the minds of mu'mineen. Now this casting of doubts always existed, and nowadays it's a lot more. A lot more of this rubbish is being promoted to the people, and in all of these mustahabbat that we have. So haq and batil becomes confused. People don't know, cannot recognize which one is which. For example, in the battle of Jamal, if one did not have basirat, if he did not know what is right, what is wrong, who is haq and who is batil, he would be lost. Someone in the battle of Jamal had doubts. He comes to Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he had doubts in the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen. He comes and he sees that both sides in the battle of Jamal, both of them, they are Muslims. Both of them claim to be the followers of the Prophet. Both sides are the companions of the Prophet. On one side is the wife of the Prophet, and on the other side are the closest ashab of the Prophet. On one side is Zubair, and he is the Prophet's aunt's son, his first cousin. And on the other side is Ali ibn Abi Talib, Prophet's uncle's son, and that is the first cousin of the Prophet. On one side he sees Talha and Zubair, who are among the foremost ashab of Rasulullah. On the contrary, on the other side sees Ammar Yasir is there. It was time for prayer. Adhan was recited, and suddenly both of them dispersed to say the prayers. Over there, prayers are led by Zubair, and here prayers are led by Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam. He looked at both the sides, and then he was confused. He couldn't recognize which one is right and which one is wrong. Comes to Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam, and says, I don't know what to do, which one to choose, who is haq and who is batil. Imam gave him a very lofty reply. Says, اعرف الحق تعرف أهله واعرف الباطل تعرف أهله. Says, know haq and you will know who its adherents are. Know batil and you will know who the followers of batil are. So first things first is that we have to know who is on haq. We have to know what haq is. And then we can find out easily who are the adherents of batil. And in this day and age, this is easy. You see Islam in all parts of the Muslim lands. You see in Muslim leaders as well. But then recognizing who is right and who is wrong, that's upon you. And once you know that, you would know that who the followers of that right are and who the followers of batil are. So know haq, and then you go seek who its followers are. If haq is that people, they voted for Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, then the other one who has come forth is not true. So it is very simple equation. Not getting into Iman and Kufr. We don't want to say that who is a mu'min, who is a kafir. No, very simple. You want to say who is faithful and who is faithless. It's a simple equation that we have. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, woe be on someone who recites this ayah and doesn't reflect, does not ponder. What ayah is that? It's from Surah Al Imran. He says, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, in the creation of the skies and the earth, and the alteration of night and day, لَآيَاتٍ, indeed there are signs. لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, Ulil Albab means people who possess intellect. Those who possess intellect, those who can reflect, those who can ponder, those who can understand. He recites this ayah and says that in this reflection there are signs, and then he says, وَيْلٌ لِمَنْ قَرَأَهَا وَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرْ فِيهَا. Woe be upon him who recites this ayah and does not ponder, does not reflect. Shaheed Sulaimani rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that I once went to meet Ayatullah al-Uzma Bahauddini, among the Maraja al-Taqleed, who was there, the Marja, for 2 years after Imam Khomeini, a very noble man, very noble. Lived for about 90 years, 88 years, 86 years he lived. And among the Urafa, who could see the inner side of other, and he could give you the prescriptions just at a glance at what I'm going through, etc. So here Shaheed Sulaimani, he says that I went to him and I said to him, I want to learn Irfan and I want you to teach me Irfan. He says, you don't need Irfan, you don't need to study Irfan. Just look into the creation. Just look into the creation, ponder, reflect, think about the existence of God, what He has created, how He has created, the harmony in the creation, etc. And then he says, I'll give you an example. Just think. Whatever you see, just think and reflect. Says that, for example, these watermelons, how heavy they are, 5 kilograms, 10 kilograms, more, less. Allah, He hasn't put them on trees. They are on these little plants, all of them scattered on the ground, on the earth. Think if these watermelons were hanging on the tree and people passing by below these trees, every now and then you'll see all these fatal accidents taking place. That watermelon has killed this person and that person. See, look into the creation, how beautiful, the glorious God, He has created everything. It says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. Do they not contemplate in the Quran? Do they not contemplate in the creation in the previous ayah? أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do you not think? Do you not ponder? Do you not reflect? Etc. etc. Now, regarding this reflection and pondering, there is a hadith in Nahj al-Balagha. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that al-fikr mir'atun safiyah. That is, your thinking, your contemplation is a clear mirror. It will not lie. Whatever you see is haqq, is true. Now, there is no lie, there is nothing hidden in that. Now, tafakkur has some criteria. Tafakkur means to ponder and to think. Now, the topic is on imamat. What you hear, don't believe in it right away, especially nowadays. You get all these messages. I got a message. Do I believe in it right away? No. Don't believe in it right away. If you have doubt in it, don't believe in it right away. What do? Do I deny it? Don't reject it also. Don't, neither tasdeeq nor inkar. Don't reject or don't accept. Check it out. And if you cannot, then you refer to someone who is sincere. Every one of us has to have someone who we can get help from. Even I, when I want help, I call Qom, I call all these great people I know to have these doubts cleared, to have these problems fixed. And it is good, just like GPs and doctors you have for your medication, for your well-being, health, for your healthy well-being, for your health. Just like that, in Deen also, there has to be someone sincere. Someone sincere, someone qualified, someone educated, someone who is an adil, who can help you. In Deen, we have to have someone like that. And then when we see that, when you don't know and you want to ask, that asking says husnul mas'alati nisful ilm. The way how you present and you ask, it means you've got half of the knowledge. A good question is half of the knowledge. There's a difference between a question and a problem. Sometimes we want to ask to get help. Sometimes it's a problem that is being casted and created to create doubts, which is happening nowadays a lot on this media, especially. Children nowadays, they ask questions never heard before. Parents also cannot answer to their questions, so they need to be educated. Even parents need to study. Parents need to learn. One of the great ulama that we have is Abu Ali Sina, and Abu Ali Sina was on his deathbed. His best of students, they were all around him, and then all of a sudden he calls someone, one of them, and asks him a question. Now those other students who were around him, they were amazed that he is on the deathbed, he is dying, and in his last moments he calls and asks a question. And when he got the reply, then the other students, they say, why now? Are you not on the deathbed? Are you not dying? Then why this question? He says, I know I'll die the next moment, but I don't want to die ignorant and jahil from this mas'ala. I want to know what that means, what that is, before I die. So that is how a mu'min has to be, that we need to learn, we need to study, and especially this whole system of imamat, it has to be understood, it has to be digested. So imamat, we accept that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us that this imamat is for our world, for our afterlife, and that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned this issue, and he wasn't silent. The others, they say that the Prophet, he hasn't discussed this issue, and he was silent on this issue. So it is upon us that we appoint someone as the successor, or we select someone by whatever way as the successor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we say that that successor is infallible and is the successor of Rasulullah, he has to have the qualities of Rasulullah as well. So if he is the successor and is seated on the place of Rasulullah, so he has to have that reflection and the qualities of the Prophet as well. Now after 50-60 years after Rasulullah, now those who were being appointed as the Khalifa and the successor of Rasulullah, we see that people like Abdul Malik bin Marwan, Walid bin Abdul Malik, Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik, now these are corrupt, evil personalities and figures who claim to be the successors of Rasulullah, sat in the place of Rasulullah, were addressed as Amir al-Mu'mineen, etc. And among them there are those who are drinking and always drunk, not even regular drinking, drunk in pools that they had created, swimming pools, and filled with wine and liquor. And then at the same time they used to claim that they are the successors of Rasulullah, and this is what the Muslim society was, and even now it is. So for all this, insight and basirat is required, and thinking is required, that someone who is seated in the place of Rasulullah, how much of a reflection he has to have with Rasulullah, what qualities he should carry. So imamat is where it triggers over here. So if someone today wants to choose an imam, what shall he do? Who shall he choose? Someone who enjoys a sinful lifestyle in all glamour, in all riches, can he be an imam for the Muslims? So imamat is not just being the successor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the representation or the successor that he has appointed in his absence. Now even when you see the seerah and the history of Rasulullah, there we find that there are many people. One of them is Abdullah bin Maktoum. Now this person was appointed as the Rasulullah whenever he traveled for battles and wars. He appoints Abdullah bin Maktoum to be in his place in Medina when Rasulullah is out in wars and battles. So a successor he appointed. A representation was there by the Prophet. So this representation is not an Imam. So an Imam can also be a successor in addition, can also be a Khalifa in addition to an Imam, like in the case of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. With reference to Imamat, Imamat is a divine appointment that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He appoints. Now here we see that on the event of in the event of Ghadir, Rasulullah, he says, Man kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla. Whosoever's mawla, master I am, this Ali is his master. So he clearly mentions. Now even Quran, when you see Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, the adab is that ala nabiyyina wa alayhi wa alayhi salatu wassalam. That when the names of the prophets are mentioned and you want to say salam to the prophet, you say salam to the prophet Rasulullah first and then to the prophet that whose name you have mentioned. So Prophet Ibrahim ala nabiyyina wa alayhi wa alayhi salam. That is, upon him our prophet and Prophet Ibrahim, and upon the progeny of Rasulullah be salam. So that is the adab to observe. Now Prophet Ibrahim, when we look into Quran, the ayah says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا قَالَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. So here it says that وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى, then when Prophet Ibrahim was tested by his Lord, بِكَلِمَاتٍ. So what are these kalimat that Prophet Ibrahim is being tested? Now here there's a difference of opinion. Some of the mufassirin, they say that kalimat are like the kalimat that he was tested, like Ya Allahu, Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub, for example. These were the words that he was tested. Or among those kalimat are the names of the five, that Muhammad wa Ali wa Fatima wa Al-Hasan wa Al-Husayn. These were the kalimat that he was tested. Now the other group of Mufassirin, they say that, now when you look into the context of the ayah, that he was being tested, what are the tests? So the first test is with his uncle, when he who was an idol worshipper. Here Prophet Ibrahim, he comes and he educates him, he guides him to the right path. So there, that is that test that Prophet Ibrahim has to go through, that if he passes that test, that is one. Or the test that he has to go through is when he is being thrown and flung into the fire. That is another test that Prophet Ibrahim goes through. Or for example, the slaughtering of his son is a further test that Prophet Ibrahim has to go through. And finally, building the Holy Kaaba. So all these kalimat means all these tests and trials and tribulations that Prophet Ibrahim had to go through. And then says, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ, he completed those tests and trials. Now that he has completed, Allah says, إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I am making you an Imam. So, he was a prophet. Now there is a debate over here. Some say that it's the appointment of prophethood that is being given to Prophet Ibrahim. No. He was a prophet. And when he was a prophet, he had further tests and trials that he had to pass, he had to go through, which he did, and he passed all of them. Then Allah says, you were a prophet, now that you've passed these tests, فَقَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I am making you an Imam. لِلنَّاسِ, for the mankind, for the humanity, I am making you an Imam. So, Imam is a rank which is loftier, which is higher than prophethood. And when he got that assignment and the designation from Allah Ta'ala as an Imam, here Prophet Ibrahim says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, and also my offsprings, my progeny, my descendants. Allah says, قال, he said, لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. That is this covenant, this ahd that is there, ahd of imamat, the covenant of imamat, says this will never be given to someone who is zalim. Zalim means someone who has done wrong, someone who has oppressed. Now, zalim doesn't mean that he has to come out with a gun and sword and then start killing people. No. Zalim, any disobedience of God that is done and which casts a negative mark on my existence is zulm. Anything. So it could be little, it could be a lot, it could be small, it could be big. So anything. Now, in an imam, in a prophet, there cannot be any kind of a zulm. Then when we recite dua kumail, we say, zalamtu nafsi, I've done wrong, I've afflicted zulm on myself, on my soul, God forgive me. An imam cannot do that. And Allah says, if your descendants among them is someone who has afflicted this zulm upon him, this ahd and covenant of imamat will not be given to him. La yanalu. And then says ahdi. Ahdi means this my pledge, this my covenant will not be given to someone who is a zalim. So we understand that imamat is an ahd, is a pledge, is a covenant by Allah, from Allah. So He appoints and He bestows and He gives. He gave that to Prophet Ibrahim. He gave that to Rasulullah. He gave that to Amirul Mu'mineen. It is Him, the Almighty Allah, who has to appoint. So it is not by way of selection and by voting that someone is appointed as an imam. No, that is not possible. So and even when you look into the ayat that talk about the dhulm, for example, says La tushrik billah inna shirka la dhulmun azim. That is, never be a polytheist, never have anyone ascribed with the existence of God, a shirk, a sharik with the existence of God, because that is the greatest of oppressions and zulm. That is, inna shirka la dhulmun azim. So this is regarding imamat, that imamat, it is a divine designation designated by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Appointment comes directly from Him, and anyone who has the faintest dhulm in him, that designation and appointment will never be given to him. And that is where we believe in the infallibility of an imam, that an imam has to be ma'asum. Ma'asum means from any mistakes he cannot commit. Any forgetfulness cannot come into his life. He cannot forget anything. He cannot do anything wrong. From the first day that he steps into this dunya until the last day that he is here in this dunya, no wrong, no error, no sin, great or small, cannot be seen and committed by the Imam. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Inshallah, we'll continue with this talk. Tonight we'll talk a little bit about Muslim ibn Aqil and his two Shaheed sons. Now this whole progeny of Rasulullah and Aqil is such a Mubarak progeny. Now, in 2014, in one of these groups that we went to Iraq for the ziyarat, we arrived in Kufa. Now, the coach driver who was taking us around, he brought us to Kufa and to the shrine of Muslim ibn Aqil. Now, before we went in, he explained this story. He says that one of the neighbors of the shrine of Muslim, he was unwell, a very rich man. Says he was unwell, goes to the hospital to get himself checked. And the doctors, when they examined him, they say that you cannot move, you cannot return home. All your four valves of your heart, they are blocked, totally blocked. You cannot move. It's fatal. We have to operate you right away. And they had prepared everything, and he had to go to the theater to get operated. He says that I need permission. I have a little task to do, and then I will come back to the hospital. They say that we don't take the responsibility. You cannot move. He says, no, I have to. He comes straight to the Dari and the shrine of Muslim ibn Aqil. There he says that I came to him and I spoke to him, and then I returned to the hospital as I promised to the doctors. And now, before he is taken to the surgery and to the theater, they say we have to do some tests, some scans to be done. And when all these scans were done, they find nothing. Now, a few hours before, when the scans were done, they showed something else, all blocks. And now when they want to operate him, nothing, no block whatsoever. They were amazed what happened. In just a few hours, we cannot deny the reports that were given to us, that were taken by us. It's the same hospital, same machines, same staff, and then the reports that are given to us now, they are totally different. He says, what happened? He also was shocked and amazed. He says, I'm not really very shaken or shocked, because what has happened is a fact, is a reality. He says, I went to the Zari of Muslim ibn Aqil. There I held his Zari and I said to him that this is my situation and I don't know whether I will live or whether I will die. I've come to say sorry to you, Muslim. We were the people of Kufa. We were your neighbors. We did not help you. We wrote to you. We invited you. We swore allegiance with you. And then we stranded you. We abandoned you. We left you alone. And you were killed. Then he says, we were bad. But I know that you are from the descendants of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You are the family of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. We know that however bad people be around them, you are generous, you are kareem, you are good, you are loyal to everyone who is disloyal to you. I've come to say sorry to you. And then he returns to the hospital, says, this is what my communication was. I went, and then he returns to the hospital. Now, Muslim alayhi salam, one of the most renowned figures, and he is, Aqil is the brother of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the second son of Abu Talib alayhi salam, Abu Talib, Aqil, Muslim, Ja'far, and then Ali, and then we have Hussein ibn Ali. So Muslim ibn Aqil is the nephew of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam and Imam Hussein's first cousin. The lineage and the environment Muslim is brought up is such a beautiful environment, such a beautiful lineage. All knowledgeable, all brave, all dignified, all obedient to Allah, all perfect beings in every aspect. And in such an environment, Muslim, he is educated, he is raised, and he is brought up. And from his childhood, he is raised and brought up besides Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhim salam. And since then, he learnt giving, and that is generosity, bravery, goodness, and piety. All of that was what he learnt. His grandparents are Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad, from where he inherits all the bounties and all the goodness and all the favors. And during the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, this Muslim is a very young, pure man who later had the honor of becoming the son-in-law of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He wedded Ruqayya, Imam Ali's daughter, and this again increased the level of awareness and obedience of Muslim towards Haqq and towards Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, and he served in the government of Amir al-Mu'mineen also. So in the years 36 to 40 after Hijrah, he is appointed and given the high ranks in Imam's army and the battalion. In the Battle of Siffin, we see that when Imam organized the army, he gave the charge of the right wing to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and Abdullah bin Ja'far and Muslim ibn Aqil. And after the shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, we see that Muslim is by the sides of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, especially during the era of Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, which was the most tensed error upon the Muslims during the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He is by Imam Hassan submitted and obedient to Imam, and also after Imam Mujtaba with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. So he was always there. And then Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he appoints him as the ambassador of the Islamic revolution of Karbala, because he was the best person who he could confide in, and the best ambassador. Confronting him, Yazid also, he appoints the worst of men from his staff, and that is Ubaydullah bin Ziyad. Ubaydullah bin Ziyad on one side here, and the Muslim ibn Aqil on the other side. And this Ubaydullah is a very evil, corrupt creature, harsh and ruthless. Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, the ruler of Basra, was appointed the ruler of Kufa as well, and was appointed with numerous powers to arrest and imprison and kill Muslim. So Muslim also, initially you've heard the story that when he moved here to Kufa, there were so many who were supporting him. As many as 40,000 allegiances were sworn upon the hands of Muslim ibn Aqil, and it was then that he also wrote to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein that people have submitted here. There are so many following, so many have sworn their allegiance. And that day, then it was the Maghrib prayers. With all these people who had sworn allegiance with Muslim, he offered the Maghrib prayers, and when he turns, he sees just 30 or 40 are there, out of those thousands of people from Kufa. He completed the Isha prayers, then he turned and he sees there's no one behind him. Muslim is all alone. Then when he comes out to Kinda, a city in Kufa, only 10 with him. When he returned, he was all alone, no one with him, all alone in the streets of Kufa. Rests by the house of an old lady, Tuwa, her name. She gives him some water and says, "It's not good for this stranger to sit outside my house. Muslim stands, I have no place to go. I am Muslim." And the people of Kufa, they lied, they betrayed me. She took him in, respected her, respected Muslim, fed him. Muslim also occupied himself in worship. That night, rests a while, dreams that his uncle Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam says, "Soon you will join me, Muslim." The enemies, they also had reached Tuwa's house, fearing them, that they would set the house of this lady ablaze. Muslim, he comes out of the house, he gets arrested, and a very fierce battle between him and Ibn Ziyad's soldiers takes place. Severely wounded, water is offered to Muslim. Now they take Muslim to the rooftop of the Darul Imara, that is the governor house. There he is offered some water. And then when he wants to drink that water, his lips were bleeding. He wants to drink, and then that water is soiled with all this blood that is pouring from his lips. He doesn't drink that water. Says another cup is offered to him, the same situation, and then he doesn't drink. A third cup is offered, he couldn't drink because of the blood that was soiled in that water from his lips. Says, "Alhamdulillah, law kana min al-rizq al-maqsoom la sharibtuh." Says, all praise belongs to Allah. If this was among that sustenance and rizq that was for me, I would have drunk this water. But it seems that this is not written for me, not meant for me, not for me. And Muslim, he is killed very brutally, beheaded, and then thrown down that Darul Himara, and then dragged into the streets of Kufa. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is informed about the murder of Muslim, and also the murder of Abdullah Yaqtar and Hani bin Urwa. So 3 shahadats were informed to Abu Abdullah. He also says, "Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un," and eyes filled with tears, prays and asks for Allah's mercy for all 3 of them. Now this is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, his Mazlumiyat, and also the Mazlumiyat of the ambassadors of Sayyid al-Shuhada, بنفس الحسين المتوفى المختبر المقتول المذبوح al-manhur, al-masmoom, al-makruh. Now everyone dies a death. But when we see for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he died a death. He was also killed. He was beheaded. And beheading also like the slaughtering of camels. And also poisoned. And also with all those pains and afflictions that he had to go through. La yawma ka yawmika ya Abu Abdullah. Now from the sons of Muslim we have Ibrahim and Muhammad alayhim as-salam. And in every problem we face, Zahra salamullahi alayha is with us. Likewise its Muslim's son, these noble personalities. They were 1 year in the prisons of Ibn Ziyad la'natullahi alayh. And instructions were not to give them food, nor cold water. Now the jailer, he does not know who these children are, just follows the instructions, and during the day and night they don't even know whether it's day or night. And just by the coming of the jailer, they find out whether it's time for prayers, and they know the timings of the salat. On a day in a conversation together, they say that it's long since this captivity has taken place. Says, do you know Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, Ja'far Tayyar, the feather Ja'far? He says yes, and that Allah has given him 2 wings instead of 2 hands to fly with. The angels in the heaven, Ja'far Tayyar, his name, that was given to him by Rasulullah. He says yes, I know them. Says, do you know his brother Aqil? He says yes. What about Ali? Says yes. Says, listen, we are the household of the Prophet. We are the household of Ja'far Tayyar. We are his grandsons, Aqil and Muslim's sons. Show us the way to Medina. Now this man, the jailer, he did not know who these children are. He says, okay, I will show you the way to Medina. First of all, he falls on their knees and says, forgive me, I hurt you. I did not know who you are, but now that I know who you are, I will definitely free you, although my life is at stake as in danger. And you also run away. Show us the way to Medina. You must travel at night, because during the day it's dangerous. And when they were set to go, he runs to and holds them and says, one promise I want you to. And that is, in the hereafter, I want you to be my mediator and my shafi'. And you mediate us, because definitely they're going to kill me because of this crime that I'm committing of freeing you too. So even that simple jailer, he had that ma'rifah, that insight, that these are the descendants of the Holy Prophet. They are the Ahlul Bayt of the Holy Prophet, and they have that right of intercession and shafa'at. Now in the night, they met an old lady. They ask for help, and she takes them in their house and says that I fear that you are going to be here because my son-in-law Haris, he is a very evil person, a very corrupt, cunning man, and I fear if he comes here tonight, your life would be in danger. She says, she greets them, welcomes them, hosts them, and they insist that she takes them home, and she does. Respects them, feeds them, hosts them, and then they say that we are the orphans of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. They don't even know that Imam Hussein has been killed. Now that night, Haris comes late. Why late? He says that Muslims' sons they have fled, and I've been searching for them all day. Now the younger brother, he wakes up. Says, I had a dream. I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam and our father present with him, and gives them the news that soon your children, they will be with you. The elder brother says, I also had the same dream. That the two hug each other and they start crying. Now this cry was heard by Haris. He comes in search of these 2 children, of where the cry is coming from, and finds out that the children that he's looking for are in his own home, ties them, And the old woman was stopping him, and his son also, and the slave also, they also stopped him, but he wouldn't listen to any one of them. The two say that take us to Ibn Ziyad, the two sons of a Muslim. They say that take us to Ibn Ziyad, maybe he forgives, maybe he gives you what he has promised to pay, or take us back to Medina. Whatever price they have set for us, my uncle Hussein will pay you. Whatever reward is meant for you. He doesn't listen, or doesn't allow, shows no grace to them. Takes them to by the lake, by the river, and says that in the morning I'm going to behead you. Takes his slave also with him. And now the sons, the two of them, they say that you don't want to free me, at least allow us to offer some prayers. He says, okay, say your prayers, and we'll see what good these prayers are going to do to you. They offer 4 rak'at of prayers, and then they say, Ya Allah, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Halim, Ya Ahkam al-Hakimin, Uhkum baynana wa baynahu bil-haq. God, you judge between us and him bil-haq. Instructs the slave to kill them. The elder brother says that, are you not from Africa? He says, yes, I am. Says, from where Bilal was, Bilal Habashi, the Muazzin of Rasulullah, our grandfather. He says, your grandfather Rasulullah, his Muazzin Bilal. And then when he finds out that they are from the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah, he throws the sword and he dives into the river and runs away, doesn't kill them. Instructs his son to carry out the task. The son also denies. His mother-in-law, she says that if the son goes ahead to carry out, to pollute himself with that crime, she would never forgive. The mother stops. He himself beheads the two sons and throws the kill. Not even between the brothers. The younger one says, you first, and then he ultimately kills the older brother first, and then beheads the younger one and throws them into the river. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إلهي بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وآل محمد وأمتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا في الدنيا زيارة محمد وآل محمد وفي الآخرة شفاعة محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.